question. Yes.
Harold Lewis, Doc.
Yeah.
Two things. Number one, you mentioned going into the consulting, actual doing it. And I would like for you to speak to the pre-work before going to the consulting.
Yeah.
And then two, the last conversation.
Okay, let me get that one first because I'll forget it if we don't. The pre-work, usually they will contact us and they inquire, what do you do? How much does it cost? And a lot of times, who would work with us? Well, we want Aubrey because his name's on the book, and I'm saying, you don't realize that Ron is probably better at it than I am. Okay, but my name's on the book, so sometimes they want. So we talk a little bit about that, but we try to talk with them about what we do. They really want to know that, and then they want to know the cost. And so they get back to us, and we'll say, depends on whom we're talking to, but let's assume it's the pastor. They're usually they've got somebody back there that they're with. Sometimes it's the pastor and it's just by himself, but it'll be some deacons or maybe a board is also interested, and he'll want to go back and he'll want to present this to them, talk about the cost, and we'll get an okay or whatever. Then they get back to us and say, we want to do this, where do we go from here? So the next thing we do is we talk about when we meet. Now we usually meet either 6 or 7 times, once a month. So we go for 6 or 7 months, basically, we're working with them. And so we try to sit down. I found out you have to do this ahead of time and get dates. Get it down when they're going to do it. Because that means you've got to make reservations, airplane reservations, and the sooner you do that, the better off you are in getting a good seat and getting a good flight and all that kind of stuff. So we pin down those times. Then we also have a contract that we introduce, which is also, Jim, it was areas to cover in a comprehensive church consultation. That would be under there. There's a number of things on here that are there. We spell it out in the contract what we're going to do, the process we're going through, and the order. And then at the end, we have them. We have the figures down there, and they sign off. It's an actual contract. And they have to pay us whether they bring us or not. So we've got a church right now that's had to interrupt their process. They're doing quite well, but they've had to interrupt it. And, but if they don't have another meeting, legally, they still have to pay us. Now, whether we'll ask them to do that or not, that's up to my CEO, Ron. He's the businessman. He handles that side of it. And he may do that. But we have them sign off on an actual contract, a legal contract. And we have it all spelled out, when we're going to meet, the times, and all of that. Okay? And they get a copy, and we have a copy. Questions about that part? Is that what you were talking about?
That is exactly what I was talking about. So I guess that those pre-meetings, you're talking about whatever their needs are, their concerns are, and you're shaping the consulting process before going, correct?
Right. And there's one other very important thing that is taking place, and that is we tell them, we want you to come up with a strategic leadership team, and we call it the SLT. And this is so very, very important to what we do in terms of getting buy-in. And I may just need to go back and give you a present. Let me cover this, and then I'll kind of go through the order of what we're going to do here so you'll know how to prepare each time. But the SLT is the key core church leaders, the leadership in the church. Now, why would we, and that's whom we're working with. And the SLT will be made up usually of staff, senior pastor, staff, and then key leaders in the congregation. If they have a board, let's say they have elders, then it would be, it depends on how many they have, but it could be all of the elders, or at least. And then we have other key leaders in the church that may not be on a board, but may have more power in the church than the board does, or the individual members. Then I make sure there are women. I insist that there be women involved, because in some churches they would not involve women. And I think you know obvious why we need to have women in there. The real brains of most outfits are right there in the ladies. And then I challenge them to have younger people, high school, college age people, because we have pushed those people out of the church. And that's why they're leaving in droves. And then I'm leaving one out here, but
so you were saying the informal leaders, just the people that don't have titles, but
right,
have power,
yeah,
influence.
Right, influence. And so, those are the people that have influence, and I'm taking them through a process My role here is to make sure they understand and go through the process, but they do the work. So for example, the process says you've got to have a mission, and here's how you do it. But who comes up with the mission? They do. Okay? So they're the ones that do that. How do they do that? Well, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but you lead them through the process. Then the advantage is these are your leadership that are doing it. So obviously you got buy-in here. And then out here you've got people in the congregation who aren't a part of this, but they're watching this, and they see people who have led them, who have won them to faith in Christ, are working on this, and so you're going to get buy-in out here. So win-win deal. You follow me?